National League North review for August, let's get into it. So the season kicked off on Saturday the 10th of August, and let's start off at newly promoted Radcliffe, who for their first game at the National League North level were at home to Scarborough. This is the highest level Radcliffe have played at in their 76-year history, but it was a bad start for Radcliffe as 40 minutes in, Scarborough were 2-0 up, both goals scored by Dom Tier, both assisted by striker Richie Bennett, who had an excellent debut. Bennett's not the most prolific striker, but as a target man and being a physical presence up front, he was superb in this game. But Radcliffe scored 103 goals last season and have plenty of attacking talent going forwards, and one of those talents is Tom Walker, whose excellent free kick pulled a goal back just before half time. And in the 48th minute, it was Walker involved again as his cross found Josh Hancock, who was unmarked at the back post, to bring the game level at 2-2. Striker Dom Tier scored 2 goals in 40 games for Scarborough last season, but in the 57th minute he went on to already better that total this season, completing his hat-trick to put Scarborough back in front at 3-2. And the game continued to be end-to-end with both sides playing some excellent attacking football, but in the 92nd minute the ball falls to substitute Anthony Dudley, who curls his shot into the bottom right hand corner to level the game at 3-3 and give Radcliffe a well-deserved point. Now let's move on to Brackley versus Scunthorpe, two sides expected to do well this season. Brackley have made the playoffs an incredible 6 seasons in a row, but for 6 seasons in a row they have failed to gain promotion, but come the end of the season they are always up there, and Scunthorpe are obviously a massive club for this level and will always be one of the favourites for however long they're in this league. But this was a surprisingly comfortable 3-0 victory for Scunthorpe. There was only really one moment in this game where Brackley troubled them, forcing a double save out of Fitzsimmons, but apart from that chance Brackley barely laid a glove on them. Scunthorpe have got a new manager this season in Andy Butler, and he's changed things up, moving them from a back 4 to a 3-5-2 formation. He's got Alfie Beeston, who's usually a central midfielder, playing as kind of a second striker up front with Danny Whitehall, and it proved to be a tactical masterstroke as Beeston scored 2 in this game, but Scunny looked fitter, they looked faster, they looked more aggressive, and this was an excellent first game of the season for them. Now let's move on from two sides who are predicted to do well to two sides who are predicted to struggle, as Rushall Olympic were at home to Farsley Celtic, and it was Rushall who took the lead 14 minutes in with an early goal of the season contender from Jayden Charles. For Farsley, goals were hard to come by last season as they were the third lowest scorers in the division, but they were the much better team in the first half and turned this game around with a Ben Atkinson penalty and a Rudy Masambo header to give Farsley a deserved 2-1 lead at half time. With Rushall bringing in 15 new players and a brand new manager in Adam Stevens, we can forgive them for looking a little disjointed in that first half, but they were much improved in the second as Sam McLintock brought the game back to 2-2 with a great strike. Rushall were excellent in the second half and had plenty of chances to win the game, but in the 89th minute Darren Stevenson was sent through on goal and delivered a sucker punch to give Farsley the 3-2 win. Slightly unfair on Rushall, who deserved something from the game, but a huge 3 points for Farsley in this early stage of the season. Now before the season started, the team that was most commonly tipped to win the title was Chester, but their season got off to a terrible start, losing 3-0 against a very impressive Spenny Moor side, who played some slick counter-attacking football. The Moors finished last season in excellent form, winning 13 of the last 18 games, and they've taken that momentum into this season. As for Chester, a lack of goals were a big problem last season, so Chester fans were over the moon when they brought back striker Kurt Willoughby on loan from Oldham, who scored 27 goals for Chester 2 seasons ago, but he didn't exactly get the best service in his first game back. Lots of long balls up to him that he was never going to win in the air. He either needs the ball to his feet or in behind the defence to run onto, and Chester did neither of those things. A comfortable 3-0 victory for Spenny Moor, and Chester will have to improve with our ambitions of promotion. Now let's move on to Kidderminster, who under manager Phil Brown got a 2-1 opening day win away at Darlington, and the big difference maker was this man on the ball, Luke Summerfield, central midfielder signed from Halifax over the summer, and everything went through him. He was pinging balls out wide all game, and he looks quality for this level. Then winger Maz Kuya, who they got on loan from York, an assist and a goal from him on his debut. He was excellent for York in their promotion season out of the National League North, and he gave Darlow's left back Callum Griffiths a torrid time. Darlow did get a goal back through an excellent Will Hatfield free kick, and they improved for the last 30 minutes once Matty Cornish and Andy Nelson came on, but a deserved 2-1 win for Kidderminster. Now let's move on to newly promoted Marine, who played their first game at the National League North level at home to Oxford City, and 14 minutes in, Marine got off to a super start when Harvey Gregson's strike takes a deflection to put Marine 1-0 up. And Marine were moments away from winning the game, but in the 94th minute, Brad Stretton would break Marine hearts to give Oxford City the equaliser. But Marine can take heart from the fact they were well organised and more than matched Oxford, even with two of Marine's best players missing, with winger Finn Sinclair Smith and striker Bobby Grant both out injured, but a decent showing for Marine in their first game. Now at the end of each match day we usually review the table, but we won't pay too much attention to it at this early stage. There was also wins for Hereford, Curzon, Kings Lynn, Southport, Buxton and Chorley. Now on to match day 2, and we'll start with Chorley at home to Hereford, with both sides looking to build upon their opening day wins, and it was Chorley who took the lead 29 minutes in through a wonderful Adam Blakeman strike. Chorley did look good in this game and really should have scored more than one goal, but in Hereford's quest for the equaliser they went 3 up top for the final 20 minutes, bringing on Akeem Rose, and it was his finish in the 78th minute that brought the game level to 1-1. And in a game where Chorley were looking so comfortable, Hereford suddenly had the momentum. In the 84th minute, Adam Henley was brought down inside the box to give Hereford a penalty. Andy Williams had the chance to put Hereford in front, but his penalty was saved. Chorley then went up the other end where Cole Hall finds himself in space on the right, cuts inside, but his effort strikes the post, and both sides had to settle for a point with the game finishing 1-1. Let's move on to Chester at home to Brackley. Both sides tipped to be at the top this season, both sides looking for a response after 3-0 defeats on opening day, but it was Brackley who took the 1-0 win in this game thanks to a 72nd minute goal from Connor Hall, and this was a game very low on quality. Chester really struggled to create anything, and Brackley took their only chance of the game. It's 2 losses out of 2 for Chester, but a big 3 points for Brackley. Now on to Curzon Ashton, who were looking to make it 2 wins from 2 away at South Shields, and in the 17th minute Curzon took the lead with a lovely curling strike into the bottom left corner from Luke Griffiths. For the rest of the second half, Curzon sat back and South Shields dominated possession without really creating an awful lot, but in the 94th minute it took a wonder strike from Will Jenkins to give South Shields a very late equaliser. And you would have expected that to be that, but in the 97th minute a Curzon corner comes in, and I'll put an arrow on the incident so you know where you're looking, but both players slide in, and it just looks like a 50-50 to me, and if anything it should have been a free kick to South Shields, but the ref points to the spot for a Curzon penalty. Will Hayhurst steps up and converts it to give Curzon a very late winner and make it 2 wins out of 2. Let's move on to newly promoted Needham Market, who for their first ever home game at the National League North level were up against Southport, and 42 minutes in it was Needham Market who took the lead for a wonderful Kyle Hammond free kick to put the Market men 1-0 up. But in the second half Southport improved with striker Tunde Owalabi coming off, allowing Danny Lloyd to join Marcus Carver up front, and 65 minutes in it was Danny Lloyd who got the equaliser to make the game 1-1. Both sides had chances and the game could have swung either way, but in the 79th minute Seth Chambers goes through on goal and his shot beats the keeper, but Jordan Keane with a heroic goal line clearance keeps the game at 1-1. Then a minute later what should have been a routine catch for keeper Marcus Garnham was spilt to give Jamie Proctor a simple tap-in to win the game for Southport 2-1. That's 2 defeats out of 2 for Needham Market, but in this game they showed enough about them to prove they can be competitive in this division. On to another newly promoted team in Leamington, who got their first win of the season beating Spennymoor 3-1. Last season in the top 7 tiers of English football, the only 2 teams who had a better defensive record than Leamington were Arsenal and Tamworth, and whilst it was clear that Spennymoor had better technical players than Leamington, their shape, their pressing, their organisation was so much better than Spennymoor's, and Leamington are a side that play to their strengths well with their ability from the long throws and set pieces, but then they've also got nippy forwards who are able to press and force mistakes, which is how 2 of their goals came about. But it's a reality check for Spennymoor, who went from outplaying the title favourites in Chester on opening day to a 3-1 defeat against Leamington the week after, and shows how unpredictable this league can be sometimes. After defeat on opening day, Warrington got their season up and running with a 1-0 win against Peterborough Sports. Keeper Peter Crook was probably expecting a cross into the box, but Connor Woods beats him at the near post with an excellent free kick, and Connor Woods is so important to Warrington with his ability to win games, so it's vital that they kept hold of him over the summer, and he was the difference between the 2 sides. So after match day 2, there's still 5 sides at the top with 100% records, and 5 teams at the bottom are still yet to register a point. Now on to match day 3, which was a round of Tuesday night fixtures, and let's start with Buxton, who made it 3 wins out of 3, beating Darlington 2-0. This season Buxton have made the switch from part-time to full-time, which has meant they had a big squad rebuild over the summer with only 4 players staying on from last season. They brought in a new manager in John McGrath from Mickleover, who's focused on recruiting young up-and-coming players with potential, and he looks to have put together a very energetic side who are excellent against Darlington, a comfortable 2-0 win to make it 3 wins from 3. After losing their first two opening games, Chester finally got up and running with a 2-0 win at home to Radcliffe thanks to goals from Dan Turner and Charlie Caton. A much better performance from Chester, but Radcliffe gave away a silly goal trying to play out from the back, and it's 8 goals conceded in 3 games for Radcliffe, who are set up so attacking with a back three that leaves so much space in behind on the wings that Chester kept on exploiting and really should have won by more than 2. But the trick for Chester now is finding a way to break down the sides that sit deep and defend, which is something that Chester do struggle with, but a solid 2-0 win for Chester. Kidderminster made it 3 wins from 3 with a 1-0 victory at home to Brackley. The only goal of the game came from Ashley Hemmings, who was set up by a Caleb Richards cross 22 minutes in. Kiddie look a very good side so far and should have been out of sight by half time with the chances they created. Second half, Brackley tightened up defensively but never really threatened, and it's a perfect start for Kidderminster, who've got 9 points out of 9. On to Chorley against Scarborough, who both started the season with a win and a draw, and it took Chorley just 10 minutes to take the lead through winger Craig Hewitt, who's been excellent for Chorley in these first 3 games and looks a super signing. Chorley were the league's second highest scorers last season, but over the summer they lost their 3 top scorers, with Justin Johnson, Carlton Ube-Zawanu and Jack Hazelhurst all moving on, and despite playing some tidy football in the first half, they're clearly lacking that cutting edge, with Cole Hall missing 2 golden opportunities that could have extended Chorley's lead. But after a first half where Scarborough were lucky not to be 3 or 4 goals down, they levelled the game in the 50th minute through a Richie Bennett header that took a fortunate deflection. This season Scarborough have got plenty of attacking depth on the bench, and after some subs on the hour mark they looked much more dangerous going forward. In the 92nd minute it was substitute Frank Mulhern who headed in from the corner to give Scarborough their second win of the season and make it 7 points from 9. Kings Lynn have been tipped by many to make it into the playoffs this season, and they made it 6 points from 9 with a 2-1 win at home to Rush Hall Olympic. Goals from both Gold Mateo and Johnny Magretz, who could be a lethal strike partnership this season. Gold scored 21 goals 2 seasons ago in the National League North, and Magretz scored 9 in 16 last season, so 2 good finishers who can score goals at this level. Then the midfield three of Hamami, McCammon and Johnson is really well balanced. They're still a full-time side, so they've got that advantage as well, and the squad seems to be looking strong this season and they've made a promising start. With ground improvement works happening at Farsley Celtic, they're having to play their first 8 games of the season away from home, but a comfortable 3-0 victory away at Marine makes it 6 points out of 9. 2 of the 3 goals were absolute gifts from Marine, with basic misplaced passes being punished by Farsley, who only scored 3 goals once last season, so to be 3-0 up by half time is not something that Farsley do often. As for Marine, with their 2 best attacking players still injured, it's no surprise that goals have been in short supply. Jack Goodwin, who they signed from Prescott Cables, looks to have a bit about him going forwards, but until they get Bobby Grant and Finn Sinclair Smith back, it's looking like goals are going to be very hard to come by. So at the end of match day 3, there's still 4 sides at the top with 100% records. At the bottom, Chester, South Shields and Peterborough Sports all register their first points of the season, with only Rush Hall Olympic and Needham Market, who are both still on 0 points. So let's move on to match day 4, and we'll start with Kidderminster, who were looking to make it 4 wins out of 4 away at Warrington, and just 5 minutes in it was looking like it was going to be an easy afternoon for Kiddie, with 19-year-old striker Ben Beresford heading in to make it 1-0. And whilst Kidderminster saw plenty of the ball, they struggled to convert the dominance into chances, and Warrington equalised 3 minutes before half time when Matty McDonald's shot came off the inside of the post and was almost kept out, but the liner had judged it to have crossed the line to make the game 1-1. Kidderminster were miles off the standard that they've set so far this season, and they really struggled with Warrington's physicality and were out-muscled off the ball time and time again, and on the 75th minute the ball fell to Mikey O'Neill, who finished well to give Warrington a huge 2-1 win as Kidderminster suffered their first defeat of the season. On to another team who failed to make it 4 wins out of 4 as Buxton suffered their first defeat of the season, losing 1-0 away at Peterborough Sports, with Ryan Fryatt scoring the only goal of the game, and this was a solid performance from Peterborough, who kept Buxton quiet and looked very dangerous from set pieces, with left back Elliot Putman's deliveries, and a first win of the season for Peterborough. On this match day, a third team lost their 100% record, and that was Curzon, who failed to make it 4 wins from 4, suffering a heavy 4-0 defeat away to Brackley. Now Brackley are expected to be at the top end of the table this season, but they've been quite disappointing considering the summer recruitment looked very strong on paper, but this performance was more like the Brackley we were expecting to see. Scott Pollock was superb, Matt Lowe showed glimpses of what a good player he is, top scorer from last season Danny Newton finally got off the mark, so this was a much more promising display, and Curzon's 100% record comes to an end, but it's still been a super start to the season for them. On to Hereford, who were looking to maintain their unbeaten start with a trip away to Southport, and it was Hereford that deservedly took the lead 23 minutes in through captain Lewis Hudson, but that Hereford lead was short-lived as only 4 minutes later Danny Lloyd showed his class with a superb strike to level the game back to 1-1. For Hereford it was looking like it could be a third 1-1 1-1 draw on the bounce, but Paul Caddis brought on Alex Babos, and it was his free kick in the 76th minute that found its way into the back of the net to make the game 2-1. And from then on, Hereford really kicked on, and they were very impressive in this game. They imposed themselves physically on Southport, but they also knocked the ball around neatly and played some good football, and it was the subs who made all the difference, with Alex Babos getting his second of the game and Andy Williams coming off the bench to add a fourth. An excellent 4-1 win which puts Hereford up into 7th. Now on to Darlington, who were looking for their first win of the season at home to Leamington, but with 5 starters out injured it was a patched up side without even a full bench, but an acrobatic strike from midfielder Will Hatfield gave Darlington a 1-0 win in a much improved performance. The Darlow defenders looked very shaky so far this season, but they had a bit of a reshuffle with Barrows and Headley as the fullbacks and Forbes and Lees as the centre backs, and they looked much more solid, so let's see if Darlington can finally start to kick on. After 3 defeats out of 3, Rushaw were looking for their first points of the season at home to Spennymoor, and it was Rushaw who took the lead 5 minutes in after a long punt up the field. Dempsey Arlott-John outpaced Ledger and finished brilliantly to put Rushaw 1-0 up. Spennymoor were keeping the ball well and getting into dangerous positions, but they failed to test the Rushaw keeper. In the 37th minute, a magic finish from Liam McCallendon chipping the goalkeeper put Rushaw 2-0 up. Spennymoor did pull a goal back through Rob Ramshaw, but Rushaw defended brilliantly and held out to put their first 3 points on the board. So after match day 4, Scunthorpe and Scarborough lead the way, both on 10 points each. At the bottom, Needham Market managed to pick up their first of the season, drawing away at Radcliffe. Now on to match day 5, where we had a full fixture list on Bank Holiday Monday, and let's start with Radcliffe, who are still finding their feet at this level and still looking for their first win of the season away at unbeaten Hereford. And 15 minutes in, Radcliffe were running rings around the Hereford defence as they went 2-0 up thanks to goals from Jamie Morgan and centre-back Brad Roscoe. But just 5 minutes later, Aaron Skinner pulled a goal back for Hereford after a ball in from Hakeem Rose to make the game 2-1. Radcliffe continued to open up a very shaky Hereford defence with ease, but they didn't have a third goal to show for it, and on the 44th minute Hereford were lucky to be level when Hakeem Rose tried to pick out Gibson, but the ball deflected off Rick Smith to make the game 2-2. In the second half, Radcliffe brought on Jude Oyibo, and he made an instant impact providing the cross for Josh Hancock to make the game 3-2. Radcliffe were carving Hereford open, and on another day could have had 6 or 7 goals, but in the 85th minute the corner comes in and Tate Campbell headers in to rescue a point for Hereford, gutting for Radcliffe who played so well and will feel they should have won, but for Hereford they are up into 5th and remain unbeaten. After a poor first 2 games of the season from Chester, they've looked a lot better in the most 2 recent games, but they came up against the Scarborough side who've made a flying start to the season sitting in 2nd, and Scarborough made a flying start to this game with Dom Tear scoring his 5th of the season 4 minutes in. But that lead lasted only 4 minutes when Charlie Caton fired the ball into the top corner to bring Chester level. And Charlie Caton didn't have the best of seasons last year, but he looked sharp at the start of this one, and he scored his 4th for the season in the 19th minute to put Chester 2-1 up. Chester had the second best defence in the league last season, but this year it appears to be their weak spot, and Scarborough levelled the game in the 76th minute through Frank Mulhern. The game seemed to be heading for a 2-2 draw, but in the 91st minute Pearce holds the defender off, allowing Kurt Willoughby to score an unreal goal worthy of winning any game. An excellent 3-2 win for Chester, who appear to be finally getting into their stride. Scunthorpe's positive start to the season continued as they beat South Shields 2-0 in what could have been a tricky away game thanks to goals from Callum Roberts and Alfie Beeston. Scunny were very impressive in the first half and could have had a few more goals, but in the second half Shields had a lot of possession, but it was all a bit flat going forward and they didn't seem to have the spark to break down a well-organised Scunthorpe side. But Scunny looked good early on and lead the way at the top of the table with 13 points out of 15. Southport made a promising start to the season, winning their first 2 games, but they lost 4-1 away at Chorley, making it 3 losses in a row and a second 4-1 loss of the season. And despite having 3 big centre-backs and 2 big forwards in Carver and Proctor, they just can't seem to defend crosses into the box. All 4 Chorley goals came from crosses, with 3 of them from set pieces, and actually 10 of the 12 goals Southport have conceded this season have come from crosses into the box. The Chorley centre-back Mark Ellis was having a field day, scoring 2 and almost had a hat-trick, and Southport manager Jim Bentley is known for his sides typically being defensively tight and hard to beat, but this side do not look like that at the moment. But an excellent win for Chorley, which takes them up into the top half of the table. On to Marine, who got their first win of the season away at Buxton, winning 2-1. It was 2 first half goals from 21-year-old striker Brad Holmes that made the difference. Just before this game, Marine signed defender Joe Mattock, who's made over 400 appearances in the EFL for the likes of Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham, and he had a good game and looks a very solid addition. Winger Finn Sinclair Smith managed to get 60 minutes under his belt after being injured, and he scored 17 goals for Marine last season and is someone that they've really missed in these opening games as they've looked light up front. They've still got striker Bobby Grant to come back into the side, so things are looking a lot more positive, and hopefully this is Marine's first win of many. Now on to Oxford City, whose poor start to the season continues with a 4-0 defeat away at Kidderminster. That makes it 3 losses, 2 draws and no wins so far. In terms of what's going wrong, I think the keeper is a big problem. Mackenzie Lyley's costing them so many goals and he's made so many mistakes that I don't see how they can keep him in goal. Defensively, they've struggled with injuries early on. In the first 5 games, they haven't been able to field the same centre-back pairing in successive games, so there's been no chance to build any sort of partnership between 2 centre-backs, which I'm sure is not helping. There's some talented players in this starting 11, Zach McEachran, Josh Parker, Josh Ashby, Andre Burley, Reece Fleet were all key players in Oxford's promotion to the National League 2 seasons ago, but at the moment they're conceding far too many, they're not creating chances, and after 5 games they sit 23rd with only 2 points, but there's still plenty of time to fix things and hopefully they can improve. So at the end of match day 5, Scunthorpe sit top of the table, followed by Kidderminster in second with Scarborough and Curzon close behind. At the bottom there's still 3 sides yet to record a win, and that's Needham Market, Oxford City and Radcliffe. Now on to the final match day of the video, and at the time of recording I don't have any highlights to show you, so we'll just blitz through some of the results and see what it means for the table. We'll start with Scunthorpe, whose 2-0 win over Kidderminster sees them go 3 points clear at the top, and Kiddie drop from 2nd to 4th. Both Curzon and Hereford recorded 2-1 wins to leapfrog Kidderminster and go into 2nd and 3rd. Defeat for Scarborough at home to South Shield sees them drop into 7th and are overtaken by both Kingsland and Alfreton. Chester sit just outside the playoffs after a 3-0 win against Peterborough Sports to go 4 games unbeaten. On to the bottom half, and Southport put an end to their 3-game losing streak with a 3-2 win over Buxton. Darlington beat local rival Spennymoor 1-0 to jump into 15th, and Brackley conceded in the 94th minute to lose against Hereford and drop down into 17th. Needham Market get their first win of the season, beating Warrington 2-1, but still sit in the relegation zone in 21st, and Oxford City remain bottom of the table after a 2-2 draw at home to Chorley. So that is the review done with, and join me at the end of next month where we'll review all the action in the National League North for September.